The conference room on Concordia Prime stretched wider than most human cities. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked across the polished floor, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Around her sat representatives from dozens of alien species, each one claiming thousands of years of civilization. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council only 50 years ago. To these ancient races, humans were children playing at diplomacy. Sarah took her seat at the circular table. The holographic display in the center showed red markers spreading across the galaxy's outer rim. Each marker represented a world consumed by the Velkrath swarm. 15 planets in 6 months. Millions dead. And still, the council debated. High Archon Velthas of the Archontai spoke first. His crystalline body refracted the light into rainbow patterns as he gestured at the display. We must continue our diplomatic efforts. The Velkrath surely have reasonable demands we can negotiate. Sarah bit back her frustration. The Velkrath had ignored every message, every peace offering. They simply attacked, consumed resources, and moved to the next target. Reasonable was not a word that applied to them. Khazir, the war master of the Katheen, growled from across the table. His leonine features twisted in barely contained anger. More talking? While my people die? The Velkrath understand only strength, and that is why your people remain trapped in primitive thinking, Velthas replied coolly. Violence begets violence. We have maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years through patient dialogue. Sarah cleared her throat. All eyes turned to her. She could feel their condescension, like a physical weight. The young human, barely a century into space travel, daring to speak among her betters. I have a proposal, she said, projecting a new hologram above the table. A joint military task force. Human tactical systems combined with Katheen warriors and Archontai defensive technology. We could stop the Velkrath advance within. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults give to children who suggest flying by, flapping their arms. The Luminari representative, and being of pure energy contained in a crystalline vessel, spoke in her melodious voice. Dear child, warfare is not simply about aggression. It requires wisdom accumulated over millennia. Your species has been peaceful for barely a generation. You do not understand the complexities of galactic conflict. Sarah felt heat rising in her cheeks. With respect, we understand conflict very well. Before we reached the stars, humanity fought wars that... Wanas... Exactly, Velthas interrupted. You fought among yourselves on a single world. We speak of galactic-scale operations involving billions of lives across light-years of space. Your experience is quaint. Khazir leaned forward. The human makes a valid point. I have studied their history. They are survivors, adaptable, and... We appreciate your enthusiasm, War Master, the Luminari said gently. But we must be cautious. Humans are too impulsive, too emotional. They react rather than contemplate. Imagine if we gave them access to our weapons technology. They might start conflicts we would spend centuries resolving. Sarah pulled up data streams. The Velkrath will reach the Talvendris colony in 3 weeks. That's 2 million Katheen civilians. If we act now, if we act rashly, we may provoke a wider conflict, Velthas said. We have dispatched another diplomatic mission. The Velkrath will surely listen to reason eventually. They've destroyed 3 of your diplomatic ships. Sarah's voice rose despite her training. She forced herself to breathe, to maintain composure. I'm sorry, but I must ask, how many worlds need to burn before talking becomes action? The chamber fell silent. Sarah could see the calculations behind their eyes. They were not cowards, these elder races. They simply could not imagine that dialogue might fail. For 3,000 years, their way had worked. Why should this be different? The vote came swiftly. 47 races voted to continue diplomatic efforts. Only 3 voted for military intervention. Humanity, the Katheen, and surprisingly, the usually neutral Draconians. It was not enough. Sarah gathered her materials, her hands steady, despite the anger coursing through her veins. She had known this would be the outcome. Earth's government had prepared her for it. But she had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that wisdom and age might also bring decisive action. As she reached the chamber door, Velthas called out, "Ambassador Chen, surely you understand our position. We must exhaust all peaceful options. It is the civilized way." Sarah turned back. The entire council watched her, waiting for her acceptance, her acknowledgement of their superior wisdom. She thought of Talvendris, of 2 million people who would die while these ancient beings debated philosophy. "Fine," she said quietly. "We'll do it ourselves." Nervous laughter followed her words. Several ambassadors exchanged amused glances. The luminary's energy form pulsed with what might have been sympathy. "My dear," she said, "surely you cannot be serious. Humanity alone, against the Velkrath swarm? That would be suicide." Sarah met her gaze steadily. "Maybe. But at least we'll be doing something." She left the chamber. Behind her, the laughter faded into uncomfortable silence. Khazir stared at the door where the human had vanished, a strange feeling stirring in his warrior's heart. It felt almost like recognition. "She was bluffing," Velthas announced to the assembly. "Humans value their lives. They will not throw themselves into an unwinnable battle." But Khazir remembered studying human history, watching footage of battles on Earth where humans had charged machine gun fire, flown planes into enemy ships, held impossible positions against overwhelming odds, not because they were suicidal, but because they had decided some things were worth dying for. He pulled up the human section of the Galactic database and began reading again. Deep into the night, he read about World War II, about Vietnam, about the water wars of 2089. He read about a species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times, that had built weapons capable of rendering their own world uninhabitable. And he began to feel something the Galactic Council had not felt in 3,000 years: fear. 3 months passed like a held breath across the galaxy. The Velkrath continued their expansion, consuming 2 more worlds while the Galactic Council drafted their 7th diplomatic proposal. The humans, meanwhile, had gone silent. Khazir stood in his private quarters aboard the Cathene flagship, studying reports with growing unease. Something was happening in human space, something the Council was choosing not to see. Or perhaps they saw it and simply could not believe it. The first report came from a trade vessel passing through the Sol system. The captain, a peaceful Vendar merchant, had filed a confused statement. "The humans have militarized everything," he wrote. "Civilian shipyards are building warships. Cargo vessels are being retrofitted with weapons. Even passenger liners are being stripped and converted into troop carriers." Quote, Khazir had forwarded this to the Council. Velthas dismissed it as economic restructuring. "Humans are impulsive," he had said. "This will pass." But it had not passed. The reports kept coming. From the frontier outposts, scouts reported seeing human vessels they had never encountered before. Not the explorer ships or trade frigates the galaxy knew. These were warships, dark and predatory, bristling with weapon systems that looked crude but effective. The humans called them by strange names: destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, terms from their violent past. Khazir pulled up the latest intelligence briefing. His claws clicked against the console as he read. The human colony on Proxima Centauri had begun producing something called kinetic kill vehicles. Simple rockets carrying dense metal slugs. Nothing fancy. Nothing that required advanced technology. Just mass accelerated to relativistic speeds. The damage calculations made him pause. A single hit could crack a continent. "Simple," he muttered to himself. "They are thinking simple and brutal." His communicator chimed. It was his intelligence officer, a young Cathene named Ral Ven. "War Master, you need to see this. We intercepted a human military broadcast. The hologram appeared before Khazir, a human in uniform, older than Ambassador Chen, with scars on his face and cold eyes. "They said we couldn't do it," the human officer was saying. "They said warfare requires wisdom we don't possess. They forgot that every human alive today is descended from survivors. Our ancestors didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being peaceful. They did it by being better predators than anything else on the planet." The crowd roared approval. Khazir felt his fur stand on end. The human officer continued, "We're going to war. Not because we want to, but because no one else will. The Velkroth are killing innocents, while the galaxy debates. So we'll handle it. The way we've always handled existential threats, with overwhelming force and absolute commitment." The transmission ended. Ralvin looked at his War Master with worried eyes. "Should we inform the council?" Khazir thought for a long moment. "Yes, but I doubt they will listen." He was right. When he presented the intercepted broadcast at the next council session, Velthas waved it away. Propaganda and posturing. What can they possibly accomplish? They have what, a few hundred ships? The Velkroth field? Thousands. Numbers are not everything, Khazir argued. "I have studied human military history. They have a concept they call force multiplication. They do not fight fair. They fight to win." The luminary's form pulsed thoughtfully. "War Master, I sense your concern. Perhaps we should observe. I could send our oracle to meditate on humanity's intentions." This was approved. 3 days later, the oracle returned. She was shaking, her crystalline vessel flickering erratically. The luminary representative rushed to her side. "What did you see?" she asked urgently. The oracle's voice was barely a whisper. But in the silent chamber, everyone heard. "They do not plan for victory. They plan for annihilation. They have awakened something ancient within themselves, something they buried when they reached the stars. I tried to see their future, but all I saw was..." She paused, struggling for words. "A storm. A terrible storm that will reshape everything it touches." Velthas shifted uncomfortably. "Surely you are being dramatic. They are one species. We are thousands." But Khazir had requisitioned a scout ship. Against regulations, he had positioned it at the edge of the Sol system, observing. What he saw confirmed his worst suspicions. The footage showed a human fleet conducting exercises in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. 237 vessels moving in perfect synchronization. They practiced attack patterns, defensive formations, and something that made Khazir's blood run cold: kamikaze runs. Ships deliberately ramming targets, sacrificing themselves to take out larger enemy vessels. He watched as human fighters engaged in simulated combat with a ferocity he had only seen in desperate last stands. But these humans were not desperate. They were preparing, training, sharpening themselves like living weapons. The scout ship's sensors picked up communications between the vessels. Battle songs, the analysts called them. Humans singing as they trained for war, their voices unified in strange harmony. The translation software struggled with the lyrics, but one phrase came through clearly again and again. "No one gets left behind." Khazir shared this footage in a private meeting with other military leaders from species that actually understood combat. A draconian general studied the display with his reptilian eyes. "They fight like they have already died," he observed. "Every movement shows soldiers who have accepted death and moved beyond fear. This is remarkable and terrifying." "What do we do?" asked a commander from the insectoid Zrix collective. Khazir closed the display. "We prepare. The humans are about to show the galaxy what they are truly capable of. And I suspect the Council will not like what they see." Back in human space, Admiral Marcus Reeves stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of his entire fleet. 237 ships. It was not enough. His second-in-command approached. "Sir, Earth Command is asking if we're ready." Reeves stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Velkrath were burning their way through the galaxy. Somewhere out there, 2 million Cathene civilians were about to die because the Council preferred talk to action. "Tell Earth Command we launch in 72 hours, he said. Target: Talvendris system. Objective: complete elimination of Velkrath forces. Sir, the odds. I know the odds, Commander. I've known them since we started planning this operation. But we're going anyway." "Why, sir?" Reeves smiled grimly. "Because somebody has to. And we're very good at doing things nobody else wants to do." The order went out across the human fleet. In shipyards, the last vessels received their final systems checks. In training centers, soldiers loaded onto transport ships. In homes across human space, families said goodbye to loved ones who might not return. And in the cold mathematics of military logistics, humanity committed itself to a war the rest of the galaxy believed it could not win. The storm was gathering. Soon, it would break. The Velkrath siege fleet hung in orbit above Talvendris like a swarm of mechanical locusts. 83 warships, each one massive and bristling with weapons that had reduced the planet's orbital defenses to debris within hours. Below, 2 million Cathene civilians huddled in underground shelters, praying to gods they no longer believed in. On the planet's surface, Commander Shakir watched the displays with tired eyes. She had been awake for 36 hours, coordinating evacuations and managing the failing shields over the shelter complexes. Her communication officer approached with slumped shoulders, a posture that told her everything before he spoke. "The Council has voted again, Commander. They are sending another diplomatic mission. It will arrive in..." He checked his tablet. 16 days. That. 16 days. They had supplies for 3, maybe 4, if they rationed strictly. Shakir wanted to scream, to rage at the stupidity of politicians, light years away, who debated while her people died. Instead, she simply nodded. "Tell the civilians we hold position. Tell them help is coming." She did not believe her own words. Above the planet, in the command ship of the Velkrath fleet, War Leader Thexnal monitored the bombardment with satisfaction. The Cathene shields would fail within 2 days. Then the harvesting would begin. Resources, metals, anything useful would be stripped and transported back to Velkrath space. It was efficient. It was necessary for the swarm's expansion. His sensor operator suddenly chittered in alarm. "War Leader! Multiple FTL signatures detected. Edge of the system. Large formation." Thexnal's mandibles clicked in irritation. "The Council's diplomatic ship? Ignore it. Continue bombardment." "War Leader, this is not a diplomatic ship." Sensors read. 237 vessels. Military configuration. They are human. For a moment, Thexnal was silent. Then he began to laugh, a harsh clicking sound that echoed through the command center. "Humans? The pet species of the Council? What are they going to do? File a complaint?" But his sensor operator's voice carried an edge of fear. "War Leader, their formation is perfect. Military precision. And they are not requesting communications. They are simply approaching." Thexnal brought up the visual display. The human fleet had indeed dropped out of FTL at the system's edge, arrayed in a formation that looked almost ceremonial. Every ship in its exact position, not a single vessel out of alignment. It was the kind of discipline that took years to achieve. Then every communication channel in the system opened simultaneously. The voice that came through was calm, almost casual, speaking in perfectly translated Galactic Common. "Attention Velkrath forces. This is Admiral Marcus Reeves of the Human Defense Fleet. You are currently besieging a colony of our allies. You have 30 minutes to withdraw all vessels from this system. Power down your weapons and retreat beyond the system's gravity well. This is your only warning. Thexnell stared at the display in disbelief. Then, he activated his own communication system, broadcasting to all channels. "Human Admiral," he said, letting contempt drip from every word. "You are either brave or stupid. My fleet outnumbers yours. My ships are larger. My weapons more powerful. You have no authority here. Leave now, or we will add human ships to the debris already orbiting this planet." There was a pause. Then, Admiral Reeves spoke again, his voice unchanged. "I see. Commander. Begin countdown." On every display in the system, military and civilian alike, a timer appeared. 30 minutes. 29 minutes. 59 seconds. 29, 58. Thexnell felt a flicker of uncertainty. "They are bluffing," he told his officers. "Humans are weak, emotional. They will not attack when faced with superior numbers." But the timer kept counting down. On the surface, Commander Shakir stared at the display in her command center. The humans had come. She did not know why. She did not know if they could win. But they had come when no one else would. "Open a channel to the human fleet," she ordered. A human face appeared on her screen. Young. Female. With dark hair pulled back in a military style. "This is communications. Officer Park. Commander Shakir. We need you and your people to maintain shelter positions. Things are about to get intense." "What is your plan?" Shakir asked. Officer Park smiled grimly. "To remind the galaxy what happens when you make humans angry." The timer reached 0. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Velkrath fleet held position, waiting. Perhaps the humans were bluffing after all. Then the human fleet moved. They did not advance slowly. They did not form defensive positions. They accelerated at speeds that should have torn their ships apart, diving into the Velkrath formation like birds of prey striking. The first wave consisted of small vessels the humans called destroyers. They came in fast and low, launching what appeared to be primitive missiles, simple rockets with explosive warheads. The Velkrath point defenses destroyed 90% of them. But 10% got through. And they were not normal missiles. They were nuclear weapons. Thexnell's ship rocked as 3 nuclear explosions detonated against his shields. Not enough to breach them, but enough to make him realize these humans were serious. "All ships. Engage the human fleet. Destroy them." Quote, but the human destroyers had already scattered. Their job done. They had drawn the Velkrath fleet's attention. Behind them came the human cruisers, larger vessels with strange weapons. They fired metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds. Kinetic kill vehicles that punched through shields, designed to stop energy weapons. Impossible. Thexnell watched as one of his escort ships simply broke apart, a metal slug having passed completely through its hull. "How are they?" "War leader, the human vessels are using unconventional tactics. They are not following standard combat doctrine. They are ramming our ships." Thexnell pulled up the tactical display. It was true. Human destroyers, their weapons exhausted, were accelerating directly into Velkrath vessels. Kamikaze attacks. Suicide runs, exchanging one ship for one. Sometimes taking 2 or 3 Velkrath vessels with them. "They are insane!" Thexnell screamed. "No species fights like this." But the humans did, and they were winning. Admiral Reeves watched the battle from his flagship's bridge. Every human life lost was a weight on his soul. But he had known this would be the cost. He had planned for it. Trained for it. "Wave 3, you are clear to engage," he ordered calmly. The heavy cruisers moved in. Massive vessels carrying humanity's most devastating weapons. They fired antimatter torpedoes, each one capable of annihilating a Velkrath warship in a single hit. They deployed drone swarms that attached to enemy hulls and detonated. They used their size and mass to simply batter smaller Velcrath ships aside, and they were coordinated. Every human ship knew exactly where every other human ship was. They moved like a single organism, each part supporting the others. When one vessel was damaged, two others moved to cover it. When a gap appeared in the Velcroth formation, human ships poured through it like water through a crack. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 73 Velcrath ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 10 had attempted to flee. Human destroyers had hunted them down. None escaped. The cost to humanity: 41 ships destroyed, another 30 damaged, over 8,000 human lives lost. On the surface of Talvendris, Commander Shakir emerged from her shelter. Above her, human ships circled the planet in patrol formations. One of them was broadcasting on all frequencies. "Attention Talvendris. This is Admiral Reeves. The Velcroth have been eliminated. You are secure. We will maintain position until Council forces arrive." Shakir looked up at the stars, at the debris still falling from orbit, at the human ships standing guard. She opened a channel. "Admiral Reeves, why did you come? Why did you sacrifice so much for a world that is not even yours?" There was a pause. When Reeves answered, his voice was tired but steady. "Because someone had to. And because we believe some things are worth fighting for, even dying for. Your people are one of those things." Across the galaxy, on Concordia Prime, the Galactic Council watched the footage in stunned silence. The humans had done it. They had defeated a Velcrath siege fleet with inferior numbers, and they were not finished. Admiral Reeves was already broadcasting his next message to Human Fleet Command. "Mission accomplished. Talvendris is secure. Requesting jump coordinates to the next Velcroth target." The Galactic Council's emergency session had been going for 6 hours. Holographic displays showed human fleet movements across the outer rim. Red lines traced their path from system to system. Each line ended at a Velcrath target. Each target had been destroyed. "This is unacceptable." Velthas slammed his crystalline appendage on the table. "The humans are operating without Council approval. They are violating dozens of treaties regarding proportional response and civilized warfare." Kazier kept his voice calm, though inside he felt a growing sense of vindication mixed with concern. "They are doing what we would not. The Velcrath expansion has stopped. Is that not what we wanted? Not like this." The Luminary's form pulsed with agitation. "They are not simply defending. They are hunting. Look at this." She projected footage from a liberated world called Drenval. The planet had been under Velcroth occupation for 2 months. Human forces had arrived without warning, deployed ground troops, and engaged in brutal close-quarters combat to clear the occupiers. The fighting had been savage. The humans had used weapons banned by Galactic Convention biological agents specifically designed to target Velcrath physiology, chemical weapons that dissolved their chitin armor, and worst of all, psychological warfare. Before each attack, humans had broadcast footage of previous Velcrath defeats. They had filled communication channels with sounds designed to trigger fear responses in Velcrath nervous systems. They had sent messages to Velcrath commanders detailing exactly how they would die, then made those predictions come true. "They are terrorizing them," the Luminary said softly. "This is not warfare. This is extermination." A new delegate spoke up. A Vendor trade minister, whose species prided itself on neutrality. "I must point out that the Velcrath casualties are extremely high. In contrast, liberated populations are being treated well. The humans are discriminating their violence. That suggests control, not madness." "Control?" Velthas pulled up more footage. "Watch this. This is from the battle at the Krevnal supply depot." The recording showed human ships deploying what their databases identified as relativistic kill vehicles, massive metal slugs accelerated to near-light speed. The Velcroth depot, a structure larger than most moons, had simply ceased to exist. The explosion had been visible from 3 star systems away. They are using planet-killer weapons on military targets, Vel'Thas continued. Do you understand what this means? They have the capability to destroy worlds, and they are deploying it casually. Khazir studied the footage more carefully. Notice they waited until all civilian transports had left the area. 6 hours. They broadcast warnings, allowed evacuation, then struck. This is not casual. This is calculated. That makes it worse. The Luminary's voice rose. They are calculating destruction, planning annihilation, and they are doing it efficiently. 1. A new hologram appeared, showing Admiral Reeves addressing his fleet. The council chamber fell silent. Listening, people of the fleet, we have now liberated 9 worlds and destroyed 43 Vel'Kroth military installations. The cost has been high. We have lost 81 ships and over 20,000 of our people. I want you to remember their names. Remember why they died. Because the galaxy chose to talk while innocence burned. We chose differently. The recording showed human soldiers, their faces hard and determined. Many bore scars. All carried weapons with the casual familiarity of people who had used them often. We are not heroes, Reeves continued. We are not saviors. We are simply humans who decided that enough was enough. The Vel'Kroth wanted to know what happens when they threaten peaceful species. Now, they know. They found out what every Earth predator learns. Eventually, there is always a bigger predator. The recording ended. The council sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Vel'Thas spoke. We must stop them. Issue sanctions. Threaten to revoke their council membership. They cannot be allowed to continue. Khazir stood slowly, his full height towering over the seated delegates. And what will you do when they ignore your sanctions? Send a diplomatic mission? The humans are no longer seeking our approval. They are beyond our authority now. Then we send our own fleets, Vel'Thas insisted. Force them to stand down. With what? A draconian general entered the chamber, unauthorized but unchallenged. I have done the analysis. To match the human battle capability, we would need to mobilize the combined fleets of at least 15 major species. That would take months. By then, the humans will have already accomplished their objective. Which is, the Luminary asked, complete elimination of Vel'Kroth military capability? The Draconian said flatly. They are not fighting to achieve peace. They are fighting to ensure the Vel'Kroth can never threaten anyone again. Khazir pulled up human fleet positions. They are currently heading toward the Vel'Kroth forward staging area at Hreknal. Intelligence suggests the Vel'Kroth are gathering their remaining forces there. Over 300 ships. Then the humans will finally be stopped, Vel'Thas said with satisfaction. 300 ships will crush their remaining forces. But Khazir shook his head. You still do not understand. Watch this. He played an intercepted communication from the human flagship. A young human officer was speaking to Admiral Reeves. Sir, long-range sensors confirm Vel'Kroth fleet strength at Hreknal. 314 vessels. Our current strength is 112 operational ships. They outnumber us almost 3-1. Admiral Reeves had smiled. Good. That will make the victory more impressive. Calculate jump coordinates. We attack at dawn. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other, demanding action, threatening intervention, predicting disaster. Through it all, Khazir stood silent, watching the human fleet movements. He understood now. The humans were not fighting a war of conquest or even liberation. They were sending a message written in fire and steel across the galaxy. The message was simple. Do not force us to act, because when we do, we will not stop until the job is finished. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Zhang Wei stood before a massive crowd gathered in Beijing. Behind her, Holographic displays showed the human fleet's progress. The crowd was silent, solemn. These were the families of soldiers, the parents and children and partners of people who might never come home. "I will not lie to you," Zhang Wei said, her voice amplified across the square. "The casualties are high, higher than we hoped. Every loss cuts deep. But I want you to understand what we are achieving. For 3,000 years, the galaxy has operated on a simple principle: endless debate, while the strong prey on the weak. We are changing that. We are proving that action matters, that courage matters, that some things are worth bleeding for." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "Your loved ones are not dying in vain. They are teaching the galaxy a lesson it desperately needs to learn. That there are still species who will fight when fighting is necessary, who will stand when everyone else sits, who will say, 'No more,' and mean it." The crowd remained silent, but heads nodded. They understood. This was not glory. This was not adventure. This was necessity. Brutal and uncompromising. Back in space, the human fleet approached Reknal. Admiral Reeves stood on his bridge, studying the tactical display. 314 Velkrath ships, 112 human vessels. By any mathematical calculation, this was suicide. His tactical officer approached hesitantly. "Sir, Earth Command is requesting we wait for reinforcements. Additional fleets can arrive in 2 weeks." Reeves shook his head. 2 weeks gives the Velkrath time to dig in, to prepare. We hit them now while they are still gathering. Besides, he smiled grimly, we have advantages they do not. "Sir, we know we are going into a fight we might not win. We have accepted that possibility and planned for it. They still think they are invincible. That makes them predictable." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Reeves. I will not sugarcoat our situation. We are outnumbered. Many of us will not survive the next few hours. But remember this, we are here by choice. We chose to act when no one else would. We chose to fight when fighting was hard. Whatever happens today, the galaxy will remember that humanity does not abandon its principles when tested. We are. Go for battle. All ships, weapons free." The human fleet accelerated toward Hreknal. Behind them, the galaxy watched, some with hope, some with horror, all with the growing realization that humanity had changed something fundamental. The age of endless debate was ending. The storm had arrived. The Velkrath home fleet at Hreknal was the largest military gathering in recent galactic history. 314 warships, including the massive command carrier that housed Supreme War Leader Zex Wrath himself. They had gathered here, not in fear, but in confidence. The humans had been lucky so far, catching isolated fleets by surprise. Now they would face the full might of the swarm. Zex Wrath watched his tactical displays with satisfaction. His forces were perfectly positioned. Multiple defensive layers, overlapping fields of fire, support ships ready to reinforce any breach. The humans could not possibly break through. Then his sensor operator reported the impossible. "Supreme War Leader, the human fleet has arrived. They are not retreating." 112 ships dropped out of FTL space. Against 314. Any rational species would have turned back immediately. Zex Wrath pulled up the visual feed. The human vessels hung in space, arranged in a formation he did not recognize. Not defensive, not aggressive, just waiting. A communication came through on all frequencies. Admiral Marcus Reeves again. His voice as calm as ever. "Supreme War Leader Zex Wrath, you have one final chance to order your forces to stand down. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Refuse, and we will destroy you." Zex Wrath could not help himself. He laughed. "Human Admiral, you are outnumbered 3-1. Your previous victories mean nothing here. This is where your species learns the cost of arrogance. I will make your deaths quick, as a courtesy to a brave but foolish enemy." "I see," Reeves replied. "Well, we gave you the option. What happens next is on your conscience, not ours. All ships, execute Operation Thunderstorm." The human fleet split into 3 groups. It made no tactical sense. Dividing their already inferior numbers should have made them easier to destroy. Zexrath ordered his forces to surround and eliminate each group separately. That was his first mistake. The human groups did not flee or defend. They attacked, but not the way any military force in galactic history had attacked. Each group had a specific target. One went for the command ships, one for the carriers, one for the supply vessels. They ignored everything else. "They are targeting our infrastructure," Zexrath's tactical officer shouted over the chaos. "They are not trying to win a battle. They are trying to cripple our capability to fight." The first human group smashed into the command ship cluster. They used the same kamikaze tactics as before, but refined, improved. Destroyers accelerated to maximum speed, their reactors already overloading, and rammed command vessels. The explosions were nuclear in scale. Each destroyer took out ships worth 10 times its mass. The second group deployed weapons the Velkrath had never encountered. Drones that did not simply attack, but hacked into Velkrath systems, causing ships to fire on each other. Biological agents pumped into life support systems, incapacitating crews. Electromagnetic pulses that fried electronics without damaging hulls, leaving ships intact, but dead in space. The third group was the largest. These were the human heavy cruisers, and their new flagship, the Indomitable. They pushed directly toward Zexrath's command carrier, brushing aside defending ships like they were insects. "All ships, converge on the human flagship," Zexrath ordered. "Destroy it." Over 50 Velkrath vessels turned to engage the Indomitable. They poured fire into it from every angle. The human ship's shields failed. Hull breaches appeared across multiple decks. It was dying. Then Admiral Reeves broadcast one final message. "This has been Admiral Marcus Reeves of the Indomitable. To all human ships the path is clear. To the Velkrath you should have taken the offer. And to anyone listening in the galaxy, remember this day. Remember what we were willing to sacrifice." The Indomitable's engines flared to maximum power, directly toward Zexrath's command carrier. Zexrath understood, finally, what was about to happen. Evasive maneuvers. Move! Move! But the command carrier was too large, too slow. The Indomitable struck it at full speed. Both ships simply ceased to exist. The explosion created a shockwave that disabled every ship within a light second. In the stunned silence that followed, the remaining human ships pushed through the gap where the command carrier had been. They were inside the Velkrath defensive formation now, and they started systematically destroying ships from behind, where armor was weakest. The battle lasted 18 hours. It was brutal, grinding, and terrible. The humans lost 51 ships, over 15,000 lives, but they never stopped, never retreated. Every time a ship was disabled, its crew evacuated, and the ship was deliberately crashed into Velkrath targets. When it finally ended, 297 Velkrath ships were destroyed or disabled. 17 managed to flee, and the humans let them go. Not out of mercy, but calculation. Those 17 would spread the word about what happened at Hreknal. The human fleet regrouped, battered, and bloodied. 61 operational ships remained. They broadcast a single message to Velkrath Prime, the swarm's homeworld. "This is the human defense fleet. Your military has been destroyed. Your ability to wage war is ended. You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. If you do not, we will jump to Velkrath Prime and finish this. You have been warned." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. The humans had done the impossible. They had broken the Velkrath swarm. Velthos was the first to speak. "Send them a message. Tell them to stand down immediately. We will handle negotiations with the Velkrath. Khazir stood slowly. No. What? I said no. The humans have earned the right to see this through. They have paid in blood for something we were too afraid to do. We will not take this from them. This is outrageous. Velthas turned to the other delegates. Surely you agree. The humans have demonstrated they are too dangerous, too violent. We must restrain them before what? The Draconian general had entered again, this time invited. Before they save more lives? Before they demonstrate that action has consequences? I have reviewed every human engagement. They gave warnings. They allowed evacuations. They followed every rule of warfare, except the ones we invented to make ourselves feel civilized while doing nothing. The Luminari's form pulsed thoughtfully. The Oracle was right. The humans have changed everything. They have shown us what we truly are, species that value the appearance of morality over the substance of it. We talked while millions died because talking made us feel superior. 48 hours later, the Velkrath surrendered. Their government transmitted an unconditional surrender to human forces. The war was over. The human fleet returned to Concordia Prime. Not in triumph, but in solemn dignity. The ships were scarred, some barely functional, but they came back. A new human ambassador stood before the Galactic Council. General Zhang Wei, still in her military uniform. She did not ask for permission to speak. She simply began. The war is ended. The Velkrath have surrendered. Their remaining military forces are disarmed. The liberated worlds are being returned to their original inhabitants. The Velkrath, we did not do this for glory or power. We did it because it needed to be done. Velthas started to respond, but Zhang Wei held up her hand. I am not finished. You are going to want to sanction us, condemn our methods, debate our actions for years. You are welcome to do so. But first, understand something very clearly. She activated a holographic display. It showed human losses. Every ship, every name, 15,412 dead, 23,000 wounded, families destroyed, children who would grow up without parents. This is what we paid. This is the cost of action. You avoided this cost by doing nothing. We accepted it because some things matter more than safety, more than comfort, more than endless debate. Zhang Wei looked at each delegate directly. The next time the galaxy faces an existential threat, we expect you will remember this moment. Remember what happens when you force humans to handle things themselves. We prefer peace. We really, truly do. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity will abide by council decisions going forward. We will follow protocols and respect treaties. But understand, if you fail to act again, if you choose talk over action while innocents die, we will do what needs to be done, with or without your approval. The chamber was silent. Finally, Khazir stood. He placed his right hand over his heart, a Kuthin gesture of profound respect. On behalf of the 2 million Kathian you saved at Talvendris, on behalf of the 30 million more you liberated from Velkrath occupation, I offer our eternal gratitude. The Kathian will not forget. Other delegates began to stand as well. Not all. Velthas remained seated, his crystalline form rigid with disapproval. But enough stood that the message was clear. Humanity had changed its position in the galaxy, no longer the young, inexperienced species to be patronized. Now something else. Something respected. Something feared. General Zhang Wei bowed slightly. Thank you, War Master Khazir. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a memorial service to attend. 15,000 families need to hear that their loved ones died for something that mattered. She left the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted into argument. Some wanted to award humanity medals, others wanted sanctions. But all of them understood that something fundamental had shifted. Humanity had proven what they were. Not warriors by culture, like the Cathine. Not scientists, like the Archontai. Not mystics, like the Luminari. They were survivors, adaptable, determined, and when necessary, absolutely ruthless. The galaxy had forced them to reveal their true nature, and now everyone understood why humanity had worked so hard to bury it under layers of diplomacy and peaceful cooperation. Because when humans stopped being peaceful, they were terrifying. A week later, on Earth, a monument was erected in Geneva. It listed every name of every human who had died in the Velkrath War. At the top, a simple inscription: they were asked to wait while others debated. They chose to act while action still mattered. May their sacrifice remind us that sometimes, the only answer to "who will help" is "I will." And across the galaxy, in council chambers and military academies, in diplomatic schools and strategic planning centers, a new lesson was added to the curriculum. Never, ever, make humans say, "Fine, I'll do it myself." Because when they do, the storm rises, and nothing remains the same.